You probably thought, Brandi, aren't we done talking about Pride Month? Never. Because in the city of Tacoma, Pride extends out of June into July. And on Saturday, they had Tacoma Pride. Why they had it July 12th as opposed to in June while everyone else was celebrating Pride, I don't know. But why not extend it into July? So Tacoma Pride 2025, big festival they have in Tacoma. I'm curious if any of you went or attended any of the festivities, because I certainly have some questions about what it was like for reasons that will become clear. So I got sent this tip from, I guess I can't really give too much information on who it was because it'll give it away. But suffice it to say, they received this email and thought it was quite fascinating and decided to forward it on to me. And what the email is, and I'll read most of it to you, it's from the elected Pierce County executive, Ryan Mello, a Democrat. It also includes the Speaker of the House, Lori Jenkins, a Democrat, as well as some other government employees, Pierce County workers, and legislative staffers. So this is very much a government email. And Ryan Mello, who is gay, and Lori Jenkins is gay as well. I guess that's relevant to this, certainly since we're talking about Pride. So here's the email, and I want to read it to you. It says, "Hello, South Sound elected officials and candidates for public office. We are 4 days away from Tacoma Pride. Please disregard this email if you can't attend. This email includes final details and serves as a reminder and additional invite for those who have not yet RSVP'd. Tacoma's Pride Festival runs for the entire month of July, and this year we will be celebrating in Tacoma's Wright Park on Saturday, July 12th. Over 10,000 people are expected to turn out throughout the day. If you can attend, we ask that you please RSVP to this Pierce County staffer. If you have already RSVP'd, no further action is needed. We would like to invite you to stand with us on stage and be introduced as a member of or ally of the LGBTQ plus community at the street festival on Saturday." Interesting. Okay, keep that in mind. "Seeing the strength of the LGBTQ plus community and allied candidates and elected officials on stage has always been a very powerful moment, and this year will be no different, especially as we stare down continued attacks on the trans community and anti-LGBTQ plus legislation spreading quickly in state after state. On the day of the festival, please check in, blah, blah, blah. During your check-in, you will be asked to sign the statement attached here, indicating your unwavering support for the protections of the LGBTQ plus community, privacy, and reproductive freedom. Please note, if you are a sitting judge or judicial candidate, we ask that you sign the LGBTQ plus statement of support for judges. Both versions are attached. Again, this can be done day of if you attend the festival in person. Okay, follow along with me here. So here you have an elected official, Ryan Mello, the Pierce County executive, from his official government account, as well as the Speaker of the House, Lori Jenkins, from her and to her official legislative email address. And they're talking about trying to organize a group of elected officials and political candidates to go to Tacoma Pride and be introduced on stage during the Pride Festival as either allies or members of the LGBTQ plus community. Now, if that were the only part of the story, I'd still think it was completely inappropriate. This is something that if Ryan Mello and Lori Jenkins want to organize and attend, they should be doing on their private email addresses. They absolutely, especially since it involves political candidates and giving political candidates a platform to talk to potential voters, they absolutely should not be using their government emails. So it would be a story even if that's where it ended. But it goes further. I referenced it there at the end. In order for them to be introduced on stage at the Pride Festival, again, a couple days ago on Saturday, these political candidates and elected officials, including judges, had to sign a statement of support. Okay? So I've got the statements of support, a copy of both, that the candidates, elected officials, and the judicial judges would have to sign. Let's go over them. This is in order for them to participate in this event that is clearly, and this effort that's clearly being organized through government means, taxpayer funds, government email accounts. So if you are an elected official or you're a political candidate and you wanted to be introduced on stage as an ally or a member of the LGBTQ community, you had to attest to the following. We, the undersigned, support and affirm the rights of all LGBTQ plus people to live as their authentic selves without discrimination in the workplace, at school, in their personal lives, or in public. This includes a steadfast commitment to defending marriage equality, protecting the rights of trans youth and families to seek gender-affirming care to live as their authentic selves, and all other current protections under law. In recognition of the intersectionality of reproductive justice rights and the LGBTQ plus community, we also support and affirm the right for any person to exercise autonomy over their body and make the reproductive healthcare choices that best support their health and well-being. So in order, again, this is being run by the elected Pierce County executive and the Speaker of the House, Lori Jenkins, and they, in their official capacities, are giving political candidates a potential platform at Pride to reach potential voters. But first, they have to sign and attest to supporting gender mutilation of children, supporting without, I guess, exception, abortion rights, marriage equality, etc., etc., etc. I'll read the judge one in a moment because it's a little bit different. So think about this. So now, in their official capacities, using their government emails, they are basically weeding out candidates who they don't like politically in order to gift political candidates who they do like a platform that the others are not going to receive. And they're doing it all in their official taxpayer-funded capacities using their government email addresses. I would also note, and we've reached out for comment, and I'll talk to you about some of the questions I've asked. I would also note that there are plenty of political candidates who believe in some of that stuff, but not all of it. So for instance, if you're a member of the gay community and you're running for office, but you don't support gender mutilation of children, well, you can't be introduced at Tacoma Pride. So there's a purity test element of this where you have to support every single aspect of our LGBTQ plus agenda in order to be given this platform that we're extending to you as elected officials in our official capacity. This is the stuff PDC violations are made of. So the judge one is even worse to me because when you're a judge, you're supposed to judge every case on the merits, and you're only supposed to pledge a commitment to what? What is the only thing as a judge that you should be pledging a commitment to? The Constitution of the United States and the state of Washington. The only thing. But in order to be introduced as a judicial candidate at Tacoma Pride, you also have to sign this statement of support. As a judicial officer, I recognize that a wide diversity of litigants, attorneys, staff, witnesses, jurors, and members of the public appear in my courtroom, including members of the LGBTQ plus community. I commit that my courtroom will respect people and administer justice in a neutral, non-discriminatory way. I will intervene if neutrality is breached or discrimination occurs. I affirm the deepest level of commitment to achieving justice by ending racism. And then it says, I acknowledge and will follow as precedential the United States Supreme Court cases, and he lists them, which is fascinating to me because, for instance, it has, it's got all these cases about like marriage equality, for instance, finding sodomy laws unconstitutional, LGBTQ laws. So it uses all of this precedent that takes the side of LGBTQ plus individuals and leaves out any other precedent that does not, and tells these judges to attest the fact that these are the cases. This is the precedent that they pledge to follow. Isn't that crazy? So I am working, and we will do a PDR, to get a list, since they did all of this through their government email addresses, of every single judge or judicial candidate who threw their credibility out the window and their ability to be considered fair and impartial out the window to sign this in order to be introduced on a stage at Pride, and will also file a public disclosure request for a copy of the LGBTQ plus statement of support for other political candidates and elected officials. So if that's where the story ended, well, that would be enough too. Because there's no way in hell they should be doing any of this from their government email addresses. As the executive of Pierce County, who is supposed to represent everyone, what about religious people who have a religious objection to same-sex marriage, but they still support gay people, who have a religious problem with abortion? So they can't participate at all. And then they're at a disadvantage, right? It's crazy. So that's all that is bad. But then here, question about your taxpayer money. So I looked, and Tacoma Pride is put on by an outside entity. It's not like the city of Tacoma is responsible for organizing, creating the Tacoma Pride event, or Pierce County. However, if you look under their sponsors, there's a whole list of title sponsors, Ruby sponsor, Emerald sponsor, all this stuff. Pierce County was both an Emerald sponsor and a Ruby sponsor. Where does Pierce County's money come from? Oh, you. So if you're a citizen and you don't support gender mutilation, and you don't support, for religious reasons, same-sex marriage or abortion, well, too bad. Because Pierce County used your money to be both an Emerald sponsor and a Ruby sponsor of Tacoma Pride. How much did they spend? Well, we did some sleuthing, found the form that lists the sponsorship opportunities and the amount that you'd have to spend. Ruby sponsor is $10,000 and an Emerald sponsor is $5,000. So we can only assume, based on that Pierce County used $15,000 in your taxpayer funds to support Tacoma Pride, whether you believe in what's being pushed there or not. It doesn't matter. And then they use their government email addresses to try to guilt political candidates into agreeing and pledging support for their radical trans agenda. How is this even allowed? How is a dime of taxpayer funds legally allowed to be used for something like this? Now, last night we reached out to Pierce County Executive Ryan Mello and the Speaker of the House, Lori Jenkins. We asked them some very obvious questions. Why are you using your government email addresses to do this? What happened if a political candidate or judge was not willing to sign one of these forms? Were they then excluded and not allowed to be introduced on stage? We asked them what message this sends to their constituents who maybe, again, for religious or other reasons, don't agree with same-sex marriage, don't agree with child mutilation, don't agree with abortion. And I say this as someone who's pro-choice. Even as someone who's pro-choice, I don't want my taxpayer money being used, one, to fund abortions, or two, to try to coerce political candidates into signing a declaration, especially judges, that they support abortion no matter what. So we've asked a long list of questions to get them to explain this. I also really do believe that this is grounds for multiple PDC violations, given the fact it involves political candidates. But it just shows you how deep this runs and how emboldened they feel. They probably see nothing wrong with this. They see nothing wrong with, as elected officials, using their taxpayer-funded offices, employees, emails, jobs, computers, whatever it is, to try to give an advantage to political candidates, give them time on stage and attention and name recognition based on whether they will sign off on a radical gender ideology. They probably see nothing wrong with that. And Nicole, last check, no response yet from Ryan Mello or Lori Jenkins?
No response.
Shocking. Yet. I'm shocked, I tell you what. So I'm not going to file a PDC violation because that's not my job. But if any of you would like to file a PDC violation, I am more than happy to send you the content that we've gathered. And we will update you guys if we get a response from either Ryan Mello or Lori Jenkins. Totally emboldened to spend $15,000 of your money supporting something that they ideologically agree with, even if you don't.